G'day guys, how you going? Hope you're having a fantastic evening. Tonight I'm going to be doing a movie review. Now this movie is Austrian, so once again it's in German language, so English subtitles. I apologise if you're starting to get sick of the fact that I keep reviewing subtitled films, but that's what I like. So it's a dated film, 1983, same year I was born, so if you're into the more modern style of cinema, then this one might not be for you, because it is a bit dated. But anyway, it was a horror film directed by Gerald Cargill, and this movie is called Angst. Now, I had heard nothing about this movie. I come across this by luck. It was a prize that I won in a contest on YouTube, and so if I didn't win the contest, I'd probably never see this film, so it was lucky for me to get the opportunity to have a look at it. And I had no expectations for it, so it was probably a good thing. I had no sort of other people's influences to influence my enjoyment of the film. So it's really good to have a really fresh start to a film. So anyway, it's not much of a story. This is really just a character study of a psychopath. So the film starts off with this guy in Austria, and he's at the end of his 10-year sentence in a prison. And he was sentenced 10 years earlier for the murder of an old woman. Now, the film starts off with the day he's getting released, and the first 10 to 15 minutes is him thinking, and it's just the mind chatter that is going through his head. Now, after we see, say, 5 minutes of his chatter, that's evidence that this guy should never have been released. He's a psychopath, and he's very, very, very mentally ill, and he still has thoughts that make him a very dangerous person. And it kind of makes you think of real life situations where people have been released and committed a crime straight away. So therefore you think, why the hell was that guy released? And this is the same sort of feeling that you get after you see this guy and what he does. So he gets released and he's walking through, and you can tell straight away that this guy, as I said, is not rehabilitated. He hasn't learned his lesson, and he starts having a strong urge to kill again. And he's going through and he's thinking how excited he's getting at the prospect of making another kill. And it's really frightening and really disturbing, just the thought patterns that this guy's having. And so he comes across this country home in the middle of nowhere, and no one, or he at first he can't tell if anybody's inside, but the I guess the possibility that someone could be inside is really getting his blood rushing, and it's making him very, very excited. And he ends up breaking in, and he finds a young woman, her elderly sick mother, and her retarded brother who's in a wheelchair. He ends up taking them hostage, and he gets to play out his sadistic fantasies, if you could call it that. He takes out his sadistic thoughts on these poor three victims. And that's as far as I go with the story. As I said, it's not a story that relies on a plot. It's not a movie that relies on a strong storyline. It really is just a study and to get inside the head of a complete psychopath. This guy, he's completely nuts. His thoughts are really, really disturbing, and the film just gets a really disturbing feel based on the script and the fact that this guy is thinking things that are just, yeah, frightening to say the least. Now, it's not an overly gory film. There is a gory scene in it, but it's just its realistic feel to the film, which makes it so disturbing. And the cover here looks pretty disturbing, and that's pretty much the mood of the whole film. He's very angry. He's very confused, and as I said, he should never have been released. And it's just a really frightening sort of story about a psycho. And the guy who played the psycho, I can't recall his name right now, but he did a fantastic job. He's kind of scared at the same time, scared, angry, violent, and just completely confused. And this guy had no sort of business being in the outside world, because he's a real danger to society. And as I said earlier, it really does remind you of when people have been released from prison and they go and do a nasty thing straight away, and therefore people ask the question as to why they've been released. And it makes you ask, it begs the question in this film, why was this guy ever released when he's still thinking like this? So it's just I guess, a mental illness and how much it's misunderstood. And especially back in 1983, you wouldn't really you haven't really come to grips with the impact that a mental illness can have. So there's a really interesting sort of way this film is done. And it's not for everyone. I know a lot of people might find this boring, but if you really like your psychological sort of character studies on a psychopath, serial killers, this is definitely one to check out. Now, apparently this is Gaspar Noé, the famous French director. This is Gaspar Noé's favourite film of all time. And I kind of had a Gaspar Noé sort of feel to this film. So I think maybe Gaspar, with his camera, the way he uses his camera, that maybe it does make sense that he's a fan of this film, because this film director, Gerald Cargill, he uses similar techniques that Gaspar Noé uses, the panning shots and the going around, sort of around and around. It had very similar camera angles in this film, so it does make sense that this is Gaspar Noé's favourite film, because there are elements to Gaspar Noé in this film. So that's something, if you like Gaspar Noé, you'd probably like this one. And it also reminded me of Michael Haneke films. Now, Michael Haneke is a German director who directed Funny Games. Personally, I didn't like that film. I thought it was overrated. But it really had strong sort of similarities with Michael Haneke as well. So if you like Gaspar Noé and Michael Haneke, this is definitely a film to check out. I don't know how easily this is for sale. I don't know how easily it is for you to get your hands on a copy. But if you do come across this film, I would highly recommend it. It is a psychological film. It's not your typical gory film. It really is a look inside the mind of a serial killer. So if this sounds like something you'd like, then I would highly, highly recommend it. It is a very disturbing film, but not so much for the brutal sort of on-screen killings. It's more a case of the disturbing way a psychopath thinks. So it's a pretty difficult film to review, but I hope I've done a good enough job of it to make you interested. So if it's something that you think you might be interested in, I'd definitely recommend it. It is a good film, in my opinion. I really liked it. But as I said, it's not for everyone. But especially if you're a fan of Gaspar Noé or Michael Haneke, this is definitely one to check out. Alright guys, that's my review. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you later.